support from state and local authorities is going to continue to hold up those honorable men and women who serve and protect every day. So thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to all of those who are here.
Thank you, Mike, very much.
Mr. President, it's an honor to be here with you. Obviously, I've been part of your team for now more than 2 years, taking over the Domestic Policy Council just about a month ago, but running the Office of American Innovation before that. What I want to say very briefly is this. 3 months ago, on this side of the White House, we gathered almost 1,000 Black leaders from around this country as we were celebrating Black History Month. And in that celebration, you talked about having the lowest unemployment, the lowest poverty rate this country had ever seen. It was a remarkable feat that deserves such great celebration. But here we are 3 months later, and it is a different time for our country. But on Friday, we had another major announcement. 2.5+ million jobs created in a time of such darkness and destruction. And it reminded me that while we are in the midst of the great American comeback, while we are going to be renewing and rebuilding and restoring this country, that none of it is possible without our law enforcement, that none of it is possible without real safety and real security in this country. So really, for the great American comeback, with your leadership, Mr. President, as we cut poverty rates again and we slash unemployment again and we build a country where every man, woman, and child has a real shot at the American dream, it begins today. I believe it begins with the people in this room. It begins with a law enforcement that is supported, that is stood up, and that I know you and the Vice President, all of us stand beside as we move forward. So thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Great job.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to work very closely with folks like Sheriff Childress and Attorney General Cameron and Attorney General Moody, who took their time to come up here to be a part of this very important conversation. As somebody who has law enforcement in my family as well, it's a very important conversation. And again, everybody that I've talked to at the elected leader level, but also at the rank and file level, was just appalled by what happened in Minneapolis. But out of that comes a commitment, a redoubling to make improvement across the country at the state and local and federal level. And really pleased to have such strong partners in the Intergovernmental Affairs Office to work with to help make that progress under your leadership, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership, and thank each one of you for being here today. When the cameras are not rolling and when there's no reporters around, there's unbelievable work that has been going on and will continue to go on to make sure that it's not just words, that it's action. Mr. President, you've been a president of action, and for such a time as this, action, again, will speak louder than words. And all of you that are gathered around this table today, we thank you for your action to be here and for the action that will come from this. So it's a pleasure to serve you.
Thank you, Mark, very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, and the administration for allowing us to sit down with you once again today. We just want you to know that you are a friend. You have been very supportive of law enforcement. As a matter of fact, I've been 29 years with Livingston County Sheriff's Department. Tony Childress is my name, and I am the sheriff of Livingston County, which is the 4th largest county in the state of Illinois. We're 90 miles south of Chicago. I call it rural central Illinois, and we have an ideology that I feel and many others feel works very well. And that ideology is being a friend of the community, supporting the community with programs like shopping with the sheriff, like Halloween with the children, always being there as a listening ear for the community and working with the community. And Mr. President, we are happy to sit down with you and to try and do everything we can to make this nation better by keeping the community safe and by working with you and the nation in making a better place. Some of the things that we feel in Livingston County will be very important is mandatory de-escalation training for all officers, prohibition of all physical restraint maneuvers on or above the neck, and any physical acts that restrict the flow of blood or oxygen to the brain, requiring all officers to render medical aid to all people, and requiring officers to intervene when physical forces are being applied to either stop or attempt forces that are being inappropriately applied and is no longer required. So we look forward to working with you to hopefully get legislation involved in making these things true and making them law. And we just thank you again for allowing us to be here, and know that you have a friend in Illinois, and anything you need, just let us know. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Tony. You do a great job, too. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bill, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, for convening this session. It's good to join with all my friends and colleagues from the law enforcement community, many of whom I've worked with over the years. I think law enforcement fully understands and has understood for some time the distrust that exists in the African American community toward the criminal justice system. And as I've been reflecting on this over the past few days and weeks, it struck me that for most of our history, in fact, maybe just up to 60 years ago, the law was explicitly discriminatory and did not provide equal protection. It's only been since the early 60s that our law has actually provided equal protection to African Americans. And what we've had over the past 50 years or so is reform of our institutions so that they reflect those values, the values upon which our country was founded. And some institutions, such as the military, have done an excellent job of reforming. And law enforcement has too. That's one thing I understand from being Attorney General 30 years ago. And what makes me very optimistic today is that the law enforcement leaders that we deal with, and you all know this, no one is more committed to reforming the criminal justice system and the profession of policing today. And there hasn't been a president recently who has been more committed. He didn't require the crisis we have today to get started with the First Step Act and with establishing a commission which has been looking at the very issues we're dealing with today. And I know there's a lot of interest among police leaders for clarity and guidance on the use of force and some of the issues you were just talking about, Sheriff. Making sure the standards are out there, making sure they are trained, and making sure they are adhered to. And we're looking forward to working with you to get that done. The time for waiting is over. It's now incumbent on us to bring good out of bad. And we can do it, and the commitment is there in law enforcement to do it, so let's get it done. Finally, just let me say that the other aspect of this is the rule of law and the need for law and order. Above the Department of Justice's main entrance is the Latin phrase that from law and order, everything else comes. It's the foundation of civilization. And we have to make sure, it's our responsibility to make sure that our country is ruled by law and not by violence.
Thank you, Bill. Well said. Thank you very much. And Daniel, I got to know Daniel in Kentucky. He is a superstar in the making, if he's not already a superstar, but he had an incredible race, and we watched it together, and congratulations on that. That was some evening, right?
Thank you, Mr. President. It was,
Go
and
ahead,
obviously
please.
was grateful for your support and grateful for your leadership on this current issue. We obviously have had the challenges with COVID-19, and now we are starting to see civil unrest in our society as it relates to some of the challenges that, frankly, black and brown communities have had, as General Barr so eloquently stated it. We have a responsibility in this room with all of our law enforcement partners to look for ways as we move forward to do it better, to become better citizens, to become better neighbors. And I'm so thankful for the men and women of our law enforcement community that recognize the importance and sincerity of that need and have the interest not only to protect and serve, but also to demonstrate understanding of the challenges and look for ways to heal the fabric of this nation. We, as General Barr said, cannot allow for chaos in our streets. We can allow for peaceful protest, but we cannot allow for chaos. We cannot allow for violence. Those in this room that know that, those that have been peacefully protesting know that. But our challenge today is how can we move together to better our communities, to better our society in a meaningful way. I'm honored to be a part of that discussion as somebody from the Commonwealth of Kentucky who represents Kentucky and understands some of the civil unrest that we are seeing there. So I appreciate you assembling this roundtable. I appreciate all of you all that are here to be a part of this conversation, and I look forward to working with you all and collaborating to better our communities and our society.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dan. Proud of you. So it's very interesting because I just see in some of the papers they want to end the police department, quote, end the police department in Minneapolis. End it. What does that mean, end it? They had a couple of very rough nights, and they had a third night which was not good. They abandoned their police precinct, something I've never seen before. You had a mayor that asked them to abandon, and now they've abandoned the mayor, it looks like. The opposite of far thinking. You know, you say far thinking, is that far thinking? So they had 3 really bad nights, and then I insisted on bringing in the National Guard, and all of a sudden it was like magic. It was in good shape. They helped with the police, but the police were told to leave their posts. Nobody's ever seen anything like that, but we insisted on having protection for that great city or that great state. A great state, Minnesota. What a horrible thing. That's where it started, and we ended very strong there once we got involved. We got involved right from the White House, and we weren't going to let that happen to that city or that state. And I think a lot of people took notice. The police are doing an incredible job. As I said, their records are being broken in terms of lack of crime, the lack of crime. We had a tremendous year, tremendous 12 months, a tremendous 36 months, I think you can say, during the term. Then you add 6 months to that. 3.5 years, it's gone by very quickly, but we've had a tremendous record on crime. And we're going to work and we're going to talk about ideas how we can do it better and how we can do it, if possible, in a much more gentle fashion. A thing like happened should never have happened. And plenty of things shouldn't have happened. But we can't give up the finest law enforcement anywhere in the world. There's nothing like it. Few people, few countries have our record. And I'm talking about the positive record. So we're going to be discussing some ideas and some concepts and some things. But we won't be defunding our police. We won't be dismantling our police. We won't be disbanding our police. We won't be ending our police force in a city. I guess you might have some cities that want to try, but it's going to be very sad situation if they did, because people aren't going to be protected. These people do a tremendous job of protecting the citizens of our country, and that's what they're paid for. But whether they were paid or not, that's what they do. And, you know, somebody put it very beautifully before where they said they protect people, risk their own lives for people they've never seen before, people in many cases they don't know. You're protecting the lives of people you don't know. And it's an incredible thing. It's a great honor to be with you all. And we'll have a little discussion now. Thank you all very much for being here.
Mr. President, can we just ask you a question? Mr. President, do you believe that kneeling is peaceful protest?
Ben, we're leaving. Let's go. having the solidarity and support and getting supplies to where those are needed is really what we need to be focused on.
And Ty, could I just add, because I think it's important from the perspective of Latin America, that